Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. The curfew has been lifted and the state of emergency is ending. What is next for the city of Baltimore, and how can police-community relations be repaired? Joining us tonight, the former mayor of Baltimore, Sheila Dixon. Ms. Dixon, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
What are your thoughts on what's happened to your city over the past few weeks?
Well, of course, everybody, it's been heartbreaking to see what happened to first the young man, Freddie Gray, in the Sandtown community. That's where my political career began, because that was the district, 4th district, that I represented at the time. And I was reminded, because Mayor Schmoke, they tore down all the houses in part of the area and created with a bill the Nehemiah homes. So real development was beginning to happen. And then to see individuals come out in the protests, peacefully protesting and calling for justice and Black Lives Matter, and just trying to really come out and speak, which had not happened in Baltimore in a long time, maybe small groups of people. And then what happened that Monday, the day of the funeral, where the family wanted peace and they wanted to be able to bury their son and respect that day. I mean, that was disheartening, and I understand the young people's frustration, but I think we have to teach our young people that it's okay to voice what they feel, but do it in a way that's going to be beneficial long term. Because the burning of those businesses like CVS on North Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue, I remember, because I was involved in that whole development deal where we put the senior housing and was able to talk CVS and coming back into the city along with other stores. It hurt. And, you know, I'm a Baltimorean and I love Baltimore, and we have a great city. And
what's the mood of that city now?
Well, I mean, I think the mood of the city now is what can be done to move forward, what can be done to work with communities like Sandtown. And believe me, there had been things done in Sandtown, but you can't stop the momentum to help people to go back and take a opportunity in their lives to try to make changes in their lives. I think now, moving forward, people are going to follow what happens to those police officers. They're going to have to understand the process, that this is only the beginning. We're going to have to bring conversations and what needs to happen with policy changes that are not only going to be affected now, but long term, and not necessarily new laws per se, but new policies and how the police deal with the community and vice versa. Continue to attract businesses into Baltimore because we need them, and rebuild that community.
Could the current mayor have handled this differently in a way that would have made any difference? So I'm not asking, had she called in the National Guard half an hour sooner, would that have mattered? But is there anything that could have been done differently?
Well, I believe that you have to constantly be interacting with your communities and all your neighborhoods. And you also have to, based on what happened all over the country, you have to make sure that your agency, the police department, understands what your policies are and what you're going to expect out of them, and the accountability that they're going to have to demand. And I think there's some things that could have been done ahead of time that I'm not sure was done.
There's been a lot of coverage nationally of the shorthand is zero tolerance policing, which describes the broken windows approach of the O'Malley administration as mayor when you were city council president, and linking that to what's happened today. Is that valid?
I don't know if that's necessarily valid. You know, I did not support zero tolerance, and that's why under my administration we began to shift into focusing on most violent offenders, community engagement, and really dealing with systemic issues that impact the community. And I think through that effort, that's why sometimes when there's something that's working, and no matter who the administration is, sometimes you have to take that and build on that. And I think when you keep changing systems that have been working, or some that have not, I mean, can have an impact on what happens long term.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question or a comment on what's happening in Baltimore, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also tweet a question. Our Twitter address is @MPT News. You mentioned your role in negotiating that initial deal to bring the CVS store in. If you were talking with their management now, trying to persuade them to come back, what would you say?
I would say to them that we have a plan to move forward. We appreciate your business. It has made a great impact in that community. And I would give them every assurance that we would work with them. One, to restore their current business, and two, to help them to create more opportunities of employment for individuals in that community, and to even create more CVS in areas that are needed.
When you watch all of the national media, the national attention to this, you get the sense that there's a difficulty in understanding why a community would burn down that CVS that was so hard won and so crucial for the seniors especially. At the same time, nationally, I'm not sure people understand just how troubled that neighborhood is and how hard jobs are to come by.
Very hard, and I think part of it is that people haven't learned, and particularly young people, and that's where we really have to work and listen to them, is that you don't take out your frustration on the property around you or the people around you. But if you don't involve them and engage them, then this is what can happen. And so it's important as we move forward that we not ignore certain groups of people in those communities. I went out Saturday and I walked around in Sandtown before the protest march, and some of the things that people said was our basketball courts were taken away, we need summer jobs for our young people, the recreation center was closed. You know, we need everybody to be engaged in those activities. We need jobs. And so sometimes when things happen, you can't wait and put a Band-Aid on it. You have to be proactive. And so, you know, I think that's important, and we have to teach them that.
Let's grab a phone call. Baltimore City, this is Helen. Helen, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to know if Sheila would consider coming back and running again for mayor.
Thank you for
quite a few people would like to have her back.
Thank you for the phone call. Now, for those who don't remember, you resigned about 5 years ago.
Yes.
After a conviction for a misdemeanor embezzlement charge. Mm-hmm. Coming back?
For the last 3 years, people have been stopping me, I don't care where I am, asking me to come back. And it's something that I have been considering.
There's an interesting parallel.
And it has nothing to do with this situation.
Been thinking about it for a while.
Yes, I love this city, people.
It's an interesting parallel between that case. So I'm imagining that there's some viewers looking at you saying, well, she was just on trial. How do you come back after that political disaster? And at the same time, we're talking about Baltimore City trying to come back from its own public relations disaster. You know, they say it's you can't unsee something. So anybody who's watched CNN at all for the last week has seen nothing but difficult images out of Baltimore. And you know, the hope of the city leadership, you included, is that everybody can get past that. How do you get people to get past what happened 5 years ago?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that now, but I will say this, that there were some decisions made that were bad. And I never allowed anything in my personal life to affect what I did as a mayor of this city and as a city council president. And when I held that office, I held it to the utmost, and I did everything in my power, knowing all the ills that face our city every day, to try to make a difference, systemically, economically, issues that people don't tend to tackle when they are in public office, because sometimes it takes long term to address systemic issues. And so there's always second chances.
Your predecessor,
you always learn.
Predecessor Martin O'Malley, obviously running for president these days, and we talked about the zero tolerance thing. He's taken a little bit of a hit from what's happened in Baltimore over the past week or so. What do you think of his chances of becoming the Democratic nominee for president?
I have no idea. I mean, until we see everybody who's going to get into the race. But Martin has always stayed focused on whatever his dreams and goals were and was able to accomplish it. Now, president, I don't know.
Is there an opportunity in all of this to do something for Sandtown, Winchester, the people who live there, other troubled neighborhoods? I mean, on the one hand, they say there's no such thing as bad publicity, but this can't be good economically for the city of Baltimore. On the other hand, what those people need is some economic leg up.
They not only need an economic leg up, but they also need a leg up in dealing with the plight of vacant properties in their community, home ownership in that community, to deal with the public housing in that community. They also need opportunities for their children to be able to understand and realize that they can make a difference if they're only given the chance. There are a lot of good people in that community, and it's just a matter of bringing everyone together, coming up with a plan, and actually making sure that you can follow through with it, no matter who is in office. See, that's the thing what people miss. You come up with a plan, a master plan that's going to change a community, and you work to do that, it can happen. And I think more and more of those individuals, particularly the young people, I had an opportunity to meet with some of Freddie Gray's friends at a church 2 days before, I think it was a Thursday. And they shared with us a plan. And in that plan, they want people to know that they want to be engaged in what goes on with the community. They want to work with the police officers and open up the lines of communication and learn the policies. They want to have job opportunities. And so we have to put some focus in that. You know, Baltimore has become a city of have and have-nots. When people ride around, you can see the communities that are struggling and those communities that are doing well. And we have to balance that.
Washington Post had a piece on, they said $130 million has been invested in Sandtown, Winchester. To obviously little apparent success. What would you say to wherever the money is going to come from, the state, the feds, that more money is going to turn the tide?
Some money will help turn the tide, but again, let's get back to systemic issues. You've got to change the mindsets of people in the community to want to be able to invest and be involved. At a plan, going back to a plan, you have to go back to a plan where you're engaging everyone in that. And the question is, you know, do we add more money onto an issue and just deal with it by putting a Band-Aid on it, but do we deal with it and get to the root of it, what's causing individuals who are addicted, who are unhealthy, who are living on welfare, who are not engaged in the schools in that community, because a number of the schools have been closed. So we have to deal with some of the systemic issues that impact that community.
I didn't ask you about the charges against the 6 officers that Marilyn Mosby has filed. Your thoughts on that?
The state's attorney has done her part. As she said that she has indicted those individuals, now has to go through a process. They have a right to a trial, and we have to watch that process. And here again, while it goes through this process, we're going to have to educate the community to let them know that this is going on, this is what's happening. I mean, they have their rights, and we have to make sure that the process is handled correctly.
Did her decision to move quickly and very assertively on that end the trouble?
I think it calmed it down. And I think that she did her own independent investigation, which helped, not just waiting on the police officers, and I think it has calmed it down. And people feel that some justice has happened today.
Sheila Dixon, former mayor of Baltimore, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Do appreciate it. Just ahead tonight, breaking down barriers, how the healing process can begin. We'll be right back.
Tonight on MPT.
Antiques Roadshow delivers an hour of discovery and fun from Santa Clara, California.
Oh, my. Oh, you have to be kidding me.
That's amazing. Takes my breath away, really.
Because they almost never survive.
Oh, my gosh.
Next time from Santa Clara on Antiques Roadshow.
Tonight at 8 on MPT. Next time on Father Brown,
Stay away from her or you'll regret it.
an abusive man is murdered,
Tiger's whiskers, Chinese assassination technique known since the 17th century.
but his entire family has a motive.
I'm not sorry he's dead, and I don't care who knows it.
And when the killer strikes again,
Father Brown's been poisoned too.
Father Brown spends his last hours solving his final case.
What have I done to deserve this gruesome end?
Father Brown.
Tonight at 10 on MPT.
On Masterpiece.
You need to be a shareholder to attend this meeting.
Will 5% do?
You sold us out.
It's not as it seems.
Get out of my sight.
If Sergei leaves, so will I.
If we let this continue, we're gonna have trouble on our hands.
We're earning at long last. Think of all the things we could do. You've been carrying a heavy burden, but he has to know. How about we get the wind in our hair?
Mr. Selfridge. On Masterpiece.
Tonight at 8 on MPT2. Tonight on MPT2.
On Masterpiece.
I'm warning you. Make terms with me, Cromwell.
Drop your plans and schemes.
You must free me from Anne. Be very secret.
When the time comes to unburden your conscience, don't go to a priest. He'll give you penance. I'll give you a reward. The game's changed, Cromwell.
Long live the king!
Wolf Hall. On Masterpiece.
Tonight at 9 on MPT2.
Joining us now in the studio are Donnie Glover, the publisher of BeMoreNews.com, and Hameen Shabazz, chair of the Criminal Justice Program at Stevenson University. Good to see both of you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here. Donnie, what's happening in your old neighborhood?
Well, the breaking news is that the police are back at Penn North. There was a gentleman who had a handgun, and a lot of people misunderstood it, and it's almost, I believe the protests have resumed.
The town's going to be on sort of a hair trigger for some time.
Especially with the warm weather. Tempers are fast and
timing's not good. Dr. Shabazz, police perspective. Your background before you were a instructor, professor, you were on the police force in Camden, New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
What do you think about all this?
Well, when I look at it, it's kind of saddening. As Mayor Dixon mentioned earlier, I don't live in Baltimore, so I can imagine how the people in Baltimore must feel. I did get a chance to experience the 1968 riots, so I know what it was like for me at that time, and I can imagine what it's like for people at this time. I, again, think it's an issue of training. I think that there's a lot of training that needs to take place with law enforcement in the nation, and particularly Baltimore City.
You know, it was interesting when after the charges were filed, the police union had a news conference, and they mentioned training 3 or 4 times in a very short span, and it sounded like laying the groundwork for the eventual defense against these charges, that while the police regulation may have said you have to buckle somebody in the van, in practice or in training, maybe not. Is that possible?
Well, in the real world, after you graduate from the police academy, if the same thing still occurs that occurred when I graduated from the police academy, this is what you get. You go through the police academy 16, 18 weeks, depending on the jurisdiction, wherever you are at. You generally get your motor vehicle code book, your criminal code book, and your departmental policy book. The problem is that most recruits that graduate from the police academy, they don't read those books. I mean, you just want to jump out and start doing policing. And the only time you actually read those departmental policy is if you got an officer that may be getting in trouble or something like that, and they're looking through these policies.
What's it do to officers, whether the charges are the correct charges or not will be determined a year from now in court. What's the impact on rank and file police and on police community relations?
I think it's going to be detrimental. Personally, I think it's still going to further create that us versus them attitude. I mean, what position do the police take? I mean, you know, I think they're going to be kind of timid for doing their job now. So I think it's going to be hurtful.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah, and that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous for them, and that's very dangerous for the community as well. So I think it's going to be pretty detrimental.
We need some love. That's what's missing. You can have all of the rules, all of the regulations. There's no dialogue. There's a lack of communication. And you're dealing not only with a long-term racial divide with a lot of people, you also have some class divide within the community where you have maybe upwardly mobile or blacks in the political profession who are disconnected from the everyday people. So it's class and race.
Let's grab a phone call. Wycomico County, this is Ronnie. Ronnie, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I'm going to comment and try to make it short and sweet.
Please.
Born in Baltimore, Old St. Joe's, in June the 12th, 1932. I lived in Hamilton for 30 years. I had children that went to school. I'm originally from Annapolis and Westminster. And I'll be proud to say my twin sister, until she's 85, is councilwoman up there in Westminster, because that was my hometown.
I got to ask you, do you have a question?
Yes. Why can't we settle this peacefully? Why do we have to burn and riot and beat and maim and kill?
Thank you for the phone call.
Martin Luther King said that the riot is the language of the unheard. We can say what we want when we have a house to go into and resources and stores to shop in. Now let's try putting on the lifestyle of 24 hours of living in one of those neighborhoods where you and your children and your family dog walk past vacant house after vacant house where there are no stores, or the stores that are there charging exorbitant amounts. You're dealing with poverty that's been neglected and overlooked, and it's not going anywhere. And because those people quite often don't vote, then the politicos feel, I don't have to deal with them. And that's exactly what's happening, considering that we have a majority African-American delegation. That's the appalling part.
It's about no jobs.
Undereducation. We have the worst schools in the state.
Plenty of drugs, no jobs.
And the police know something about that dope coming to that community.
What do you mean?
The people there, if they're impoverished, then they don't run a cartel. They don't have boats and ships. We see people get locked up and then they're back on the street in 5 minutes. So you have a lot of people working with the police, and so that dope just doesn't appear.
Professor, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's a huge problem, but there's many pieces to the problem that needs to be worked on. Some of what he mentioned is correct, but also you have other parts of this big problem that we just need to come together as a state, I believe, and find some solutions to the different parts of the problem. It's not a one-size-fit-all solution that you can resolve everything. So I think that we would be better served that if we gather all the resources that the state has, and I'm talking about your academic resources, I'm talking about your professionals that are in the field, or practitioners that are in the field, your advocates, your community advocates, parts of the community, and come together and try to develop a plan or a solution that will deal with the whole problem.
You know, one thing that's different from '68 and that empowers people in any community anywhere is that cell phone video.
That changed the game.
Yeah. For anybody anywhere.
Kind of like television was to the 60s.
But that's only capturing what's seen. What about what's unseen? What about the occurrences or the things that's happening that people are just not taking cell phone pictures of? So again, you have to work with the root of the problem. My position is that it's training for law enforcement, but I also think that there's some training that needs to occur with the community. For example.
Just a couple of seconds.
Sure. I watched the video clip of the CVS store, sitting at home. Now, when I seen the video clip, I seen looters going into CVS, no police. Then you seen the smoke coming out of the CVS, no police.
Dr. Shabazz,
then you seen the fire coming out of the CVS.
We're going to have to leave it there because we're totally out of time. I want to thank everybody for watching. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.